The Napa Valley is synonymous with California wine in the minds of consumers, but the region's rich history and diversity are often underappreciated. Over 45,000 acres of vines cover the valley floor and dot surrounding hillsides and mountains with some of the most sought-after grapes in North America. The image of Napa as a wine-growing region is the result of over 175 years of successes and failures making wine. Vines arrived in the 1830s, but it wasn't until 1861 when Charles Krug established Napa's first commercial winery. Krug was followed by several names still known in the valley today. Among them, Jacob Beringer, whose winery is thought to be the oldest continually operating winery in the region. In the late 19th century, phylloxera, a small aphid-like insect that feeds on the sap of vines, appeared in the valley with the same devastating results it had caused in the vineyards of Europe. Napa's vineyards were decimated by the turn of the century, but amazingly, the worst was yet to come. In 1920, Prohibition shut the industry down completely. Knowledge and innovation was nearly wiped out. During this dark time, only sacramental wine was produced. Repeal of the 18th Amendment in 1933 was cause for celebration and sparked renewal for the wine industry.
The decisive vote of the 36th state against Prohibition is happy news. At least 500,000 new jobs are predicted as the result of repeal.
One of the men most famous for rebuilding Napa after Prohibition was winemaker Andrei Tchelistcheff. In 1938, he began improving technology at Beaulieu Vineyards by looking towards the wines of France. Many famous winemakers, including Robert Mondavi, consider him a mentor. It was during this period of great innovation that Napa Valley grew into a world-famous wine destination. In 1981, Napa Valley became the second American viticultural area, but shortly after, phylloxera struck again. Through the late 80s and 90s, 2/3 of the valley's vineyards were replanted. The viticultural landscape changed. New ideas in viticulture, ripeness, and vinification led to a newer, richer, and lusher style of wines to be forged in the 1990s and beyond.
As you can see, we just finished up to harvest some Cabernet Franc, but we on a Cabernet land.
From the legendary Inglenook Cabernets of the 1940s and 50s to the iconic cult wines of the modern era, Cabernet is the valley's signature wine.
Napa, with the different soils and the different microclimates, has the ability to grow a lot of different varieties and traditionally had all kinds of different things, but it's really settled in on Cabernet to now it's by far the dominant variety.
The reason we grow Cabernet Sauvignon in the Napa Valley, I think, is really twofold. Because we have an ideal climate, we have the influence of the ocean that comes through the fog, through the San Francisco Bay, that draws up through the valley, that gives us a cool enough climate to grow Cabernet Sauvignon. And we also have the soils, the incredible variety of soils. In the Napa Valley, we have 33 distinct soil types.
Within the Napa Valley AVA, there are 16 smaller AVAs, separated by location, soil profile, elevation, and temperature. Many of the valley's individual AVAs may be broadly grouped into mountain or valley floor appellations. The coolest is the Carneros AVA, and is located at the valley's southern end. Divided between Napa and Sonoma counties, the windswept hills of Carneros produce high-quality sparkling and still wines from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The valley floor appellations, stretching from Oak Knoll and Yountville in the south to Calistoga in the north, experience large diurnal shifts, retaining acidity while promoting ripe flavors. Rutherford and Oakville are prime areas for red Bordeaux varieties. This is largely because of the soil found in what is called the Rutherford Bench.
The soils that made Napa Valley famous are the Rutherford Bench. They're loamy, gravelly soils.
That's really important for Cabernet because Cabernet needs well-drained soils that the water leaves early in the summer and restrains the growth. Cabernet is a very vigorous variety, and if it grows vigorously, you get a lot of green flavors and sort of weak, thin wines.
Because it doesn't rain here, it simply does not rain in the Napa Valley during the summer. The vines run out of water just about at veraison, which is when they shouldn't be growing anymore. And they do that naturally. We don't have to hack them back. They just stop growing. And I think that's one of the secrets.
Elevation in Napa is a pretty big factor.
Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa Valley can be all the way up to 2,300 feet, so there is a wide range of variation.
In 1979, Dunn Vineyards released their first vintage from Mountain Fruit. This was grown on Howell Mountain, and at the end of 1983, it was named the first mountain AVA in Napa. Mountain AVAs are famous for their low nutrient soils. Vines that grow in mountain vineyards have to struggle to produce a small yield of concentrated fruit.
These are young plantings up in Mount Veeder, and they're going to produce wines with a more pronounced intensity and higher level of tannin. The reason for this is the increased level of light intensity and the effect of the inversion layer that creates these more intense, powerful wines.
Basically, the higher you are in the hills, the warmer the nights and the cooler the days. Initially, ripening is slower, but by the end of the summer, the tannin and color have sort of rocketed ahead, and it's a very different profile than on the valley floor, where the cool nights sort of preserve more sort of aromatic freshness, and you end up with maybe a more elegant style of cab on the valley floor sites versus the big, rich styles that you often get in the mountains.
Diamond Creek produced Napa's first wine to retail over $100 a bottle and helped pioneer the single vineyard concept in Napa.
We do have an appellation, which is the Diamond Mountain appellation. We were the first one up here in the late 60s. There was just a handful of wineries at the time. Our first release of wine of the Volcanic Hill and Red Rock Terrace was in 1972.
Even with Cabernet firmly established as the dominant grape variety in the valley, winemakers still search for the next varieties that may shape the future innovations in the region.
I think the future of Napa is going to be one of even more diversity. As people discover more and more about the region, we will find more areas to grow different varieties of grapes. And I think we'll see more grapes from the Rhone Valley, more grapes from southern Italy that will come in and find a unique place in this unique growing region.
The Guild of Sommeliers is a nonprofit membership organization for wine professionals. To join our online community, visit us on the web at guildsom.com.